I'm waiting for you. All right, so I'm actually not going to talk about testing today. This one is actually going to be a little bit of a story on how CTF saved Christmas. And so first I want to get started with, if you haven't actually heard of what a CTF is, the rest of the presentation might not make a whole lot of sense. So CTF is essentially a collection of challenges, and the goal is to get the flag out of all of those challenges. And so when we talk about flag, it's really just a unique string. The string can be anything. It's whatever the challenge creator decides to make it. It's just proof that you've actually solved the challenge. Really, the only best practice or standard that they have around these things is generally the first bit of the flag is pretty consistent among all the challenges, so that when you actually run across it, you actually know that you actually found it, and it's not like A, B, C, or A, or just some random string that doesn't really make any sense. And so there's going to be multiple types of challenges. So one of the first that are out there are web challenges. And so, for example, to kind of give you an idea of how getting a flag out of something might make sense is, let's say the flag is just in a database, right? And they give you a website with some forms, and you just have to use SQL injection to actually view the database and get the flag out of it. So that could be one approach using SQL injection. There's also approaches in where they'll give you a website and there's some logic around like cookies. So maybe you have to like modify the cookie to present the flag. So it's all of these methods using the web to get out a piece of information. There's also forensics. One approach to this is actually something called steganography, where it's the practice of like storing text and images. And a few ways that you can approach this is you can actually put the text or the flag into the image itself. And so you have to mess with like hue and saturation and brightness and just try to figure out, did the creator of the challenge kind of like hide it in the image itself? There's also ways to actually, you can like embed zip files into images. You can put text into images. So you might have to use like a hex editor or just see if you can find a way to get the flag out of the image. There's cryptography. So the flag could be in a zip file that's protected by maybe some like weak RSA, and you have to crack the RSA. It could just be the text itself could just be a bunch of ones and zeros, and you have to convert it from binary to text, or some sort of cipher that you have to decode. And then one last example I wanted to give is reverse engineering. So this is typically done with binaries. So for example, let's say you're given a executable, and when you run it, it says type in the password and we'll give you the flag. So you could just brute force that potentially, but that's not really reverse engineering. And so what they really want you to do is if it's like a .NET application, for example, you do something like .peek and like look at the source code itself and figure out how the application is actually working. And then once you know how it works, you can actually put in the password and get the flag. If it's like a Java application, you could use like a Java decompiler and look at that source. There have been a lot of examples where it's like a C library that was compiled for like Linux distributions, and you have to use like IDA to essentially look at the assembler and try to make sense of that. And a lot of these, what they'll actually do is, because if you put the flag into the binary, you can look at the source code. You can probably get the flag out of it. Normally what they kind of do is they'll put like the binary on some remote server that you have to connect to, and the flag is actually stored on a file server somewhere else. So that if you do like an overflow attack or you have the password, you can figure out how to solve it, and then you can execute it on the remote server. And so one reason why I like to talk about this is because, it covers up my joke. Circles are really hard. So I was just counting how many times it took me, and even that one is not that perfect. And because this has like real world applications. Yes, they are puzzles, and some of them can be contrived, but they're born from actual issues that are in the real world. Oh no, we're good. We're good. So this brings us back to the whole Christmas spiel. And so when it comes to Christmas, I'm a huge procrastinator. I mean, we're talking like, okay, how long is it going to take for this to get to my house? And I need to make sure that I buy it like on this day so that it arrives on Christmas Eve. And so I knew what I wanted to buy. I just, for some reason, again, I didn't buy it because I knew, I don't have to buy that until like, December 15th or whatever. And so that day came around, and I was unfortunately greeted with a big old sold out sign. And so there's a couple of ways that I can approach this, right? There's the one of, okay, well, I guess I should get the couch ready because that's where I'm going to be because I don't have any gifts. Or there is the second option of maybe is there something we can do about this, the I wonder. So let's kind of walk through this, right? If this is saying that it's sold out, it's probably not clickable because you can't do anything with it. But if we were to go to another product that actually was in stock, so like a buy now, we as developers, we know that there's probably something on the back end when we actually click that button adding to our cart. There's, it's making some remote service call to do some post to put that into our cart. So if we wanted to actually look at what that might look like, we can open something like Fiddler, right? And so we can actually see this is like the actual valid request of clicking that buy now button. And it's pretty straightforward for this website. We are doing a post to cart.php, and we're saying, I want to buy this product ID, 6813, and so add it is the action, and a quantity of 1. So add this item one time, post it to cart.php. And that's what it looks like when you try to add this item to the cart. And so really, the only difference between this post and the one that I actually want to do, because my item's out of stock, is this product ID, right? And so product IDs they're not like proprietary. I mean, you can get product IDs really, really easily. I mean, they're not anything hidden. So if we can get the product ID, like, can we just change that value and post it to the backend server? So Fiddler actually has a really nice tool called Composer, where you can actually drag this request to Composer, and we can actually replay that attack or replay that request with with our own value. So here, I mean, that's the exact body. It still says 6813, but you just put that into your own into the actual product ID, and then it's hiding up there. But there's an execute button up there, and the execute button just plays that request. And so that item that was out of stock is actually now in our cart. The first one is just the one that we were just kind of playing with to actually get the legit request. And so this should hopefully highlight that client-side validation is pretty poopy. I mean, it's more there just to kind of guide the user and it's not doing anything silly. If you want to do validation, like server-side validation is super important because this should have never happened, right? And so it's like, oh my God, that's crazy. But I mean, I get it. It's like, it's the whole science thing. You can't create something out of nothing. If it's sold out, it's sold out. Sometimes. So this is the response that I ended up getting back. I like the whole, but somehow the order went through. And so it worked out. I mean, I got the item, and everyone was happy. So, huh? Well, no, I mean, I paid for it. I mean, they got the item. I don't know the whole archive thing. I'm not really sure, but, and so yeah, so the like whether you recognize it or not, like that whole process. I mean, that was basically that could have been a capture the flag challenge, right? Like that could have been a web problem where the goal was to call some backing store, and once you actually made that call, you got a flag back. In this case, we added the item to the cart. But real world, actual capture the flag problem. I actually think back in November, this was actually one of the similar problems where like, we opened up Postman, we had to post to the capture thing like 10 times or whatever. And so it's one of those things where like if you go through this process and you learn how these exploits work, if you know how they work and you know how to execute them, then you can be better off. And when you're actually writing your applications, you can be more knowledgeable on how these work, and so that you can actually write more secure software. And so I wanted to bring this up because I'm going to try something a little different. Again, we had the CTF event back in November. Wasn't the greatest turnout. So I'm actually going to try a weekly CTF where it's one problem a week, so you can do it whenever, wherever. And I have a couple plans. So I'm gonna be making them all thus far. I am going to ask for help if anyone is interested. There is actually one out there, like right now, the site is live. If you go to it, there is a problem out there. It's a bit on the easier side, just so that you can kind of get familiar with how CTFs work and get your team created. And then there'll be a bit of a harder one on Monday. And again, so if you get, so I encourage you to try them out. If you get stuck, I encourage you to talk to people and just kind of figure out how to solve these problems. Because again, if you know how the vulnerabilities that are out there and how to execute them and learn about them, we can make better software. And that's what I had. I don't know, do we have questions now, later? Yeah.
Did you ever tell the website how you place the order?
I did not know. Actually, I don't want to bring it up. I mean, so like, for example, there one of the standards, like robot.txt, there's actually a security.txt is like a standards. I could have checked that and seen. I have done that in the past. There was actually one, my school has like a group manager thing, and they did something very similar where the delete button was just hidden by like a JavaScript, like, are you an admin kind of thing? And I just did like a button.show, and then I clicked the button, I was able to delete groups. And I told them about that, and I never got a response back, but I don't know, a couple months later, I noticed it was fixed. So if there is a security.txt or I feel like it, yeah, I'll tell them, but this one I didn't say anything.
Is there going to be any bounties, prizes for the ongoing CTF site?
It's just, again, for me, okay, the answer is I don't know. There is a point system. We had talked about, like, if we release it on 1 week, it's worth full points. If it's going to be, if you solve it in later weeks, maybe it's reduced points. Because I do plan on doing like a blog post on how to solve each one. Because again, for me, it's all about the learning aspect. I mean, even me, from being someone like highly competitive, I really just want people to learn and collaborate. So I don't necessarily want to dissuade people from like hoarding secrets. So I mean, I want to appease both camps, the competitive and the people who just want to learn. But I don't right now. There's no like monetary like or prize or possum or anything. It's just I just encourage people to do it, and then we kind of just play it by ear. I mean, it's going to be kind of like a trial run to see who's interested. I mean, if I release it and there's like no team signed up like a month from now, well then we tried. So.
Do you have anything set up to discuss the weekly challenges, like Teams?
Yeah, we just made a Teams this morning.
Oh, cool.
So there will be a Teams that you can join. That's just CTF, and people can talk about it. And it is meant for, it's going to be a channel for this as well as like other CTFs. Because I mean, there are tons of public CTFs out there. I mean, there's a CTF going on right now, especially if you like never have done CTF before. It's called Neverland, and it's actually geared towards middle schoolers. So it would be a great like introductory, like figure out how CTFs work and some pretty simple solutions. And so that channel is going to be reserved for hours. And then like, hey, I found this CTF. If you want to join it, I'm going to be doing it. We can talk about it. So yeah, there will be a discussion space. And again, I do plan on doing like a blog post of like, this is how you can solve it. And then maybe we can even have a thread like, oh, it's a great idea, and it'll be like persisted.
Yeah, and we're hoping that the teams, you wouldn't go in there and say, how do I solve this? And then people would explain it like, day 2 kind of thing. But like if you're struggling and you think you're doing the right thing, you're like, hey, can I get some help with this? And then you can take that outside of that chat, use DMs and talk through that with one of us or with somebody else that's already solved it, and sort of collaborate that way. Any other questions?